Hello, Ethan. It is your girl, the legit boss, Sasha Banks.
The Wrestling Life.
Hey everybody, it's The Wrestling Life. It's episode 265. It is May 7, 2021. I'm Ethan.
And I'm Liam.
Liam, we have so much to talk about this week.
And as always, so many things we can't talk about right here on the first and the only wrestling podcast.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a few weeks since we've done a program, probably because you would think with my job being working for a pro wrestling website now that I might have more time to devote to wrestling. False. I have less time to devote to wrestling. So I've been pretty much in New Japan mode for the last 3 weeks as they've been running shows every other freaking day. They ran 2 big shows this week. There's stuff going on there. We can get to that in a little bit. Not as many people care about that as about the 2 major promotions that are on basic cable in the United States, AEW and WWE. And let's start with the WrestleMania Backlash build, if you want to call it that. They have 3 matches announced for that show so far. The women's title match on each show, and then the Drew, Braun, Bob Lashley match for the WWE title. Not feeling the buzz for the show. That's 1 week from Sunday, or are you?
Yeah, I mean, you seem like maybe they're trying to jazz it up this year because obviously it's not just Backlash, it's WrestleMania Backlash. Like they're trying to get a little residual, like brand recognition on the show this year with that name or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, so are they gonna do like a big time match? The answer is no. They are not. They are doing mostly the same matches or variations on the same matches so far, and seems like we'll get a thrown together undercard in probably the last 6 days or so before the show. So they are not exactly trying their hardest, but hey, they don't have to.
That's right. The most interesting thing coming out of WWE of late, besides I think Sasha Banks being away filming The Mandalorian, would be Daniel Bryan's contract expiring. He's a free agent, and lots of buzz, a lot of speculation. By the way, did you listen to Wrestling Observer Radio this Wednesday?
I did, yes.
Okay, did you catch Dave Meltzer's reference to Dark Side of the Ring? Having flashbacks, Daniel Bryan, that kind of thing?
Yes, and it was mostly funny because Brian Alvarez decidedly did not get what Dave was trying to say.
Right. Did you get what Dave was trying to say?
I assume he was talking about Pillman getting out of WCW and then ending up in ECW and WWF.
Right, and him being on the phone with Pillman all the time.
Yes.
Talking through that stuff. So the implication being he's on the phone with Brian all the time talking through this stuff right now.
Right.
And so everybody was like, oh, what dark thing is going to happen with Daniel Bryan? And it's like, nothing. Dave is just talking to him a lot.
Yes,
like,
and this week is the debut of the Pillman Dark Side of the Ring, which is
right
where that connection fits in. Yes.
Right. So that's what that was. But anyway, his contract's up. Everybody wants him. WWE wants to keep him very badly. What do you think happens?
I think he resigns. Like, I'm not happy about it, but it's like, I feel like if he was going to go, he would have went the last time his contract came due in 2018 or whatever that was.
Right.
Like, he makes good money. He doesn't work a particularly hard schedule, especially now. Could probably, for the most part, call his own shots as to who and when he wants to work. And, he's got his wife, his wife works with the company. I just don't see, I would like to see him anywhere but in WWE, but I don't see it. No matter how much I wish it weren't so. No matter how much I want to see him like having an insane like bloody brawl with Blue Demon in Arena Mexico, or the Murder Clown, of course. Or go obviously your mind races to him doing the G1 or something, and how exciting that could be. I mean, AEW would be fine. There isn't as many like dream matches in that company that I can think of for him there, compared to like seeing him square off with Okada or some of those other big stars. But obviously, if you could set up a Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega match, that'd probably sell a few pay-per-views. So yeah, I think it would be almost everywhere but WWE would be more exciting for me to see Daniel Bryan wrestle in, but I just don't see it happen. This feels very much like the Rey Mysterio stuff from last year to me.
See, you're much more definitive on it than I am. Like, I feel like if his wife was still there working every day or every week, as the case may be, I think it would be more of a slam dunk. Given that I don't really know her contract status, I don't know if she's in a contract to them or exactly what the deal is, or how serious she and Nikki are about coming back and having another run. I don't know. I'm not as definitive as you are, but
I've just been hurt too many times before. I was so excited when he came back and they put him in a tag team with Shane McMahon, and then they did nothing with him for 6 months and turned him heel. And it's really just they've bummed me out on Daniel Bryan that I am terrified of getting excited for anything involving Daniel Bryan at this point.
That's fair. My thing is, like, he definitely wants to do the globe-trotting thing, picking his spots, where he wants to work, when he wants to work. It's like, all right, well, was he 39? He'll be 40 this year, I think.
I believe so, yeah.
So, he doesn't have forever, but also, he's going to wrestle 10, 15 more years. So he doesn't necessarily need to do that tomorrow, right? I mean,
I suppose. I just feel like the longer, that's like the other thing is, like, if I feel like if he doesn't leave now, he's really just never leaving.
Right.
And again, if that's what he wants to do, if he's happy with that decision, he gave an interview. I forget who it was with. It might have been like the Barstool Wrestling guy or something, where he was like, he talked about wrestling in the main event of WrestleMania this year and feeling absolutely nothing.
Yes.
So like that would certainly suggest that he is not super happy, even being at sort of a top spot in WWE at this point. He's kind of done all that he can do there.
Right.
But at the same time, I haven't gotten the vibe that he's like a Moxley case, who was like, Moxley made it very clear in that first Jericho interview when he left WWE. He's like, I love pro wrestling. I want to be a part of pro wrestling forever. I don't want to be in WWE. Right. And right. I don't know. I didn't necessarily get that sense from that Bryan interview where he's like, I love wrestling. I still have this desire to go everywhere and wrestle all over the place. I feel like I was getting the vibes of like, I'm about done being a full-time wrestler.
Well, that could be too. That could be too. And if that's the case, WWE is the best place for him, right? I mean,
sure. I mean, if he gets a Goldberg deal or something, makes like a 1.5 million a year to wrestle 4 times,
right? Or if the whole thing is he wants to spend more time with his kids who are young and get sad when he goes away for 2 weeks at a time, is that going to be better if he's going all over the world to wrestle? Or is it going to be better if he flies to Florida and is away in Florida 3 or 4 days a week? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, I guess it's the thing. If he does 2 tours of Japan a year and he's home the other 50 weeks of the year, or the other 48 weeks of the year, maybe that's more palatable because he's there for longer stretches as opposed to flying out to Florida once a week or whatever. But yeah, if he's on a part-time schedule, like you're saying, then yeah, absolutely. That's, it's a lot easier if something is important going on in their lives, or if there's a problem or an emergency, you can get home from Orlando a lot faster than Tokyo.
Sure. Do you think there's any chance? Because I think in his perfect world, I don't know this, but I think his dream scenario would be I get to work WWE and they also let me work CMLL. Is there any chance that they make an exception for him and let him do something like that?
I think it might again be the Moxley thing. I feel like there was talk that someone had a conversation with Triple H and he was like, oh, do you want to go work New Japan? Maybe we can work something out. When he was trying to get someone to re-sign who didn't want to re-sign.
Right.
I don't remember if that was Moxley or not.
I don't remember either. It might have been Gallows. I mean, the only other guys that come to mind would be Gallows and Anderson, but I don't know.
Yeah. So it might have been Moxley then, but I think I specifically said like Triple H floated that.
Right.
But I think Triple H probably says a lot of things. WWE, Johnny Ace and formerly Mark Carano's office probably would make a lot of promises or allusions to promises when you're trying to get somebody's name on a dotted line so they don't leave. But
right.
Yeah, so maybe, but like, I mean, how many WWE guys, other than, unless you count them going to like the UK guy, letting the UK guys work the UK indies, there aren't a lot of examples of them letting guys, especially not like a show that high profile, like a big show in Mexico like that.
Not in 25, 28, 30 years, but like Hogan in the 80s, Hogan in the early 90s.
Sure.
Andre all through the 80s. Like, I know it was a different world back then, but I guess it depends where the old man's brain is.
Well, I was going to say, the old man definitely likes to pretend it's 1987 with some of the guys that are getting pushed on the television. So maybe we can trick him into letting Brian do a tour of Mexico and a tour of Japan or something.
Yeah, he's definitely into pushing big guys who can't work and who like to do a lot of squeezing in their matches right now. Meanwhile, Ricochet and Mustafa Ali are just having absolute bangers on Main Event.
Yeah, they're like shooting little promos with the guy that used to do the OTT video packages that people would rave about in Ireland.
Okay.
Yeah, they're working hard, and I think Borash is probably involved as well. But I think specifically they hired that guy from OTT, and I think they're working with them, shooting promos for it. They're doing all this stuff on social media to try to do it. It feels very it's a step up in quality for sure, but this is like the type of thing Matt Hardy would do on his YouTube channel when he was like a job guy on SmackDown in 2009, and he's like, I'm in a big feud with Drew McIntyre. I'm gonna cut all of these promos on my YouTube channel. And it's like, okay, sure, man. Like,
right.
I appreciate that they're not just sitting there, but also like,
right. You just described how I think of Zack Ryder.
Well, Zack Ryder worked though, like for a while. That's the exception to that rule, I think, more than the maybe the exception that proves the rule. But yeah, Zack Ryder,
okay,
did a mostly comedic web show that popped a lot of the boys in the locker room, and they got so annoyed by it they tried to they decided to ruin his life.
Okay. I just like winding you up about Zack Ryder. Yeah, so Vince is into pushing big guys who can't move right now, and Johnny Ace is all about hiring all the swimsuit models back as All Red Everything. Eva Marie, the Evolution, which they trademarked this week. The Evolution has returned to WWE.
Well, first things first, she's got to come out to the Evolution music, right?
I wouldn't. I mean, it's 100. It's one of 100 songs. Like,
is she full of change that no one sees?
I don't know. It's none of my business.
Well, it's a mystery,
Right. I understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many people know the lyrics to the Evolution theme in and out.
I feel like there's at least, I mean, that's like the first line. So That's all I personally know either. But
All right, that's fair.
yes, it is one of Hunter's big important Motorhead songs.
Right. Yeah, so she's coming back. Get any thoughts on that?
So two things. One, it's not like she can make the show any worse, right? Like, who cares?
This is true.
Like, I understand the idea of people who are going, oh, they didn't know or couldn't figure out something to do with Peyton Royce or Billie Kay or Mickie James or Chelsea Green or all these other women they just fired.
Right.
But they're bringing back a woman who is not a particularly charismatic figure, very attractive, and but I think she's just coming off I'm going to guess, not particularly successful attempt in Hollywood.
Sure.
And now she's back, and she was not a particularly good wrestler.
Never got it. Never understood how to work.
Had like one really good match that was taped and edited with Bayley in NXT years ago.
Sure.
Which was a lot more storyline than match. And again, right. I'm not saying anything against her as a person. She's getting paid, right. Good for her. Yeah. But like, is she gonna add anything to the shows? No. Is she gonna make the shows any worse? Also, no, in my opinion. I understand people that were frustrated with all the talent that got let go, but also it's not like they didn't fire them to hire her. Like, she was rumored for the Rumble, I think. Like, she's been back in the fold or near back in the fold for a while now, correct?
She signed like 6 or 7 months ago and like has been working out. Like, I don't know if it's with Kendrick or whoever they send people to in Southern California. Like,
right.
That's who she's been working with for like 6 months. So I think they were just waiting for the right opportunity to bring her back.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
But right, it wasn't, hey, let's fire Mickie and hire her. It's like right. they've, and even when she left, it always felt like it was more than just the standard, all the doors always open. Like, it felt like this was always the plan, was she was going to go away for a while, try the acting thing, but she was going to come back. Like, I always came away with the impression that she was going to come back.
I mean, I just kind of assumed that they invested a lot in her.
Sure.
Right? Like, they don't send every woman in that performance center to have like private wrestling lessons with,
right.
With, a guy who at the time I don't even think was on the payroll.
Right.
Like, right. They went out of their way to try to make her passable enough in the ring.
Right.
So they invest. Yeah. So I always got the impression that barring her, like, getting a really good agent and wowing us with like some hidden acting talents, that there was a pretty strong chance she was going to end up back in wrestling in some form or fashion. I don't know. Like, we don't know if she's going to wrestle. We don't know if she's going to be a manager. Like you said, she's been working out in LA or whatever. So probably going to be a wrestler. But again, it's like Lana's on the show every week, guys.
Right.
Like,
right.
There's no bottom to this anymore. Like, we're back. Like, the divas are back. Johnny Ace is back in charge, baby. Like, like, wrestling talent is not what's important right now if you're a woman in WWE. And I don't say that to disparage women. I'm sure they all work very hard. But if you look at who is like on television regular right now, it's like Dana Brooke and Lana and Reginald, of course.
But, star of the women's division.
That's right. The protagonist of WWE, Reginald. But yeah, there aren't a lot of women being featured, and the women that are being featured are mostly very attractive women who aren't necessarily great professional wrestlers.
There's certain elements of pro wrestling that Nia Jax is good at, like the character stuff. I feel like she's good at. Mm-hmm. To your point, she wrestles on TV like 3 times a week. Like, how much worse could it get?
Right. Like, and you'd think wrestling that often on television, she'd be better than she is, but she's gotten worse over the last.
Well, physically,
years.
I'm going to sound like Jim Ross here. Physically, she can't do as much as she used to be able to do. And as a result, has actually gotten worse as a worker.
Yeah. And again, it doesn't necessarily help her that she is generally working with Lana every week.
Right. Lana and Dana Brooke. And I don't know what happened to Mandy. Mandy can't work anymore. So,
I mean, I don't know, man. Like, there's a lot of those people that from that class of call ups where I was like, they're good. Like, they're gonna, and they're give them a couple more years, they'll be great.
yeah.
And they did not get any better, and a lot of them got worse.
Yep. It's really weird. Albert didn't teach them how to do calisthenics well enough.
Well, I don't want to blame Albert too much for this one, because they were out of Albert's hands once they get called up to the main roster. It's Dean Malenko and whoever were the agents were at the time. Billy Kidman wasn't
Right.
doing him any favors with the agent thing or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Abyss did not do a great job of agenting Sonya and Mandy's matches over the last couple of years.
Right. By the way, do we ever talk about on the air how all the foot stuff started once Jeff Jarrett got rehired?
I don't know if we ever. I think we've talked about how there's weird fetish stuff all over women's segments in WWE for the last year.
Oh,
a
1,000%.
We've definitely talked about that, but I don't know if we've directly connected it to the rehiring of Jeff Jarrett.
Look, I'm not pointing fingers. All I'm saying is, look, there was never anybody barefoot in the WWE ring for like 3 decades since Jimmy Snuka. And then now every other week, there's a woman on TV in the ring with her shoes off. And I'm like, what is happening? Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of answers for you. There's, like I said, there's a lot of you're not very good wrestling, and then you got whatever pervert crap Alexa Bliss is doing, and
real weird.
And then Rhea Ripley said on this week in an interview that she's taking acting classes to try to give herself more confidence, because she's the Raw Women's Champion on national television and she's having a crisis of conscience. And I don't blame her mental state for that. I just want to be clear. I'm not mocking her. I'm like, good for her. She's trying to better herself, trying to get more confident. But also, what is this performance center for? What is NXT for? If not to prepare these people to be on national television on Raw or SmackDown.
And also, what feedback are you getting, like, on your promos? That, like, okay, some people need kind of tough love, and some people need a more sandwich compliment approach to criticism. It's like, what kind of feedback is she getting on her promos? That, like, I don't think she's knocked it out of the park with her promos, but she's far from the worst promo on WWE television. It's like, what have they done to mess up her mind? Right? I mean, that she's got that she feels that way. I mean, it's kind of your point, but yeah.
We'll have to wait for the WWE 365 where this is spun into a positive somehow.
Good Lord. You see that video of Liv Morgan tearing it up in the ring?
Yeah, she looks great. Imagine not being able to figure out something to do with her on your 5 hours of network television that you have to run every week.
Dang this thing. Did you see any NXT this week?
I saw parts of the main event with Shotzi and Ember Moon against Aunt Candice and Indy Hartwell.
Yeah, I kind of zipped through the show on DVR and I watched the Karrion Kross, Finn Balor, Kyle O'Reilly, Pete Dunne segment. That's fine. It's Karrion Kross looks like a mechanic from Missouri. But particularly if you were to shave that goatee, or like, he is just screams Midwest United States mechanic to me.
He looks like an alt-right YouTuber.
Yeah, like you definitely think he has an All Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter sign somewhere in his house. But that was fine. But the main event, I think it was like an all-time great Street Fight or anything, but there were some good spots in there. And my WWE champion Shotzi Blackheart, That kid is just fearless. She throws herself around. I felt bad for her and Candace because they were too light to break the ladder.
Yes, that was.
They did like a spot off the post through a ladder, and they were too light to actually go through the ladder. So they kind of bounced up into the air and then fell on the ground.
Yeah.
Like, oh boy. Shotzi took another crazy bump there, but she made fun of Chris Jericho taking a stunt bump on this week's AEW Dynamite Blood and Guts. And for that, I mean, I've said since I watched like an NXT like 6 months ago that Shotzi should be WWE champion, and I only believe that more so today after she took a shot at Chris Jericho on Twitter. AEW had their big Blood and Guts show this week. What do you think?
Of the whole show or just the Blood and Guts match?
However you want to attack it. You want to attack the match first and then the show second, or the match last?
Yeah, I mean, the match feels, I guess, the most important, so we can leave with that.
Yeah, if you get to QT, burying QT, you get to burying QT. You know,
exactly. We'll get to that. Don't you worry. So the match, it reminded me, and I feel like everything I say about this is going to be construed wrong by somebody, but whatever. Who's even listening?
It's not a huge listenership.
Yes. Anyway, I was reminded of the barbed wire exploding death match from the last pay-per-view.
Sure.
In that the most of the work in the match I thought was very, very good. Right. There was a lot of guys who are talented, and Sean Spears working very hard. I'm kidding. Actually, even Sean Spears, I thought was really good in the match. That's how complimentary I am of the first half of this match.
He fundamentally used to be very good.
I mean, the knock on him was never that he was a bad wrestler. You know, there's a reason they had him in OVW working with all these big lugs for all those years.
Right.
And FCW and NXT. There's a reason he lasted that long in that system. Thought he was good. Sammy Guevara, very good. Santana and Ortiz were great. Even Jake Hager, I thought when he got in there and is doing his giving everybody big boots and stuff, I was like, yeah, this is fun. I'm really enjoying this.
And that guy hasn't had a good match in like a decade.
When did he wrestle Christian for the ECW title? That's the last time I remember enjoying a Jack Swagger match.
Probably 2009.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So anyway, I was really enjoying it, and then they get to it and everybody's in the cage, and then there's like a good and there's two like quick sequential commercial breaks right after each other. Like they go to a commercial right as like all five guys are in, or right before, and then like they come back, everybody's in, there's a couple minutes of brawling, and then there's a lot of standing. And Jericho is like visibly audibly on the thing, like asking Aubrey for a time cue repeatedly. Like he's just talking to her, and the camera's just like getting close-ups of him. Maybe it was only for like 30 seconds. It felt very long. So I'm like, he's just very clearly talking to the ref, asking her or telling her a time cue or something. Because I guess they were trying to time it of coming back out of that last commercial to start climbing the cage or whatever.
Right.
Which again, things happen, live TV, whatever. But so there's I thought there's like a middle part there even before they start climbing where it kind of breaks down. But then they start to climb, and I'll just say, regardless of the stunt bump, which Shotzi Blackheart and everyone else I think is right to make fun of, because they did not hide the crash pad well at all, or the cardboard boxes apparently that he fell on. Wasn't an actual real crash pad. They did a bad job, and most importantly, they did a terrible job of filming it so that you could immediately see that he fell on a crash pad and that the quote unquote steel grates were cardboard.
Sure,
I blame the cameraman much more than I blame Chris Jericho for not wanting, for taking a safer bump or whatever. But regardless of all that, because again, you want hot takes on whether that's good or bad, or people wanted Chris Jericho to kill himself, and I was no, I think people just wanted it to look less lame.
Right.
Same thing with the barbed wire match in that way. No one wanted Jon Moxley to actually be blown up. They just wanted it to not. They wanted more than 3 sparklers and a smoke machine going off.
Right.
So it's the same sort of thing. Like if you shot it differently, if you show him shoved off and then you cut to like a side view of Jericho falling, I think it would be fine. I say all of that to say that even if this bump had looked great and it was the most vicious, terrible bump anyone's ever taken, it put Mick Foley to shame, I still wouldn't have liked it, because I felt, and they didn't say this overtly, but I felt like this was sold on, this isn't the TNA War Games. This isn't the WWE War Games. We're not doing stunts. This is a fight.
Right.
And so I wanted to see guys get brutalized, and we got that for about 75% of the match, and I was loving it. And then they decided to do a big stunt, and on top of it, the stunt was lame. So, like, I would have much preferred somebody gets beaten down, maybe like, Harwood or whichever one of them does like the leg lock. You put Jericho in that, and then MJF puts on the arm bar, and Jericho's fighting in 2 submissions, and all the other guys are down, and he fights and fights and fights and finally gives up. Because then it's not really a fair fight, but you still put over your heels really strongly. I thought it was too cute to do the friend throws in it's like Arnold Skolin throwing in the towel for Bob Backlund. Like, it's lame. Like, it's lame. It was lame to have that be the final. That was the surrender part, was Sammy begging MJF not to throw Jericho off the cage, and then Jericho getting thrown off the cage was also lame. But to me, like I said, like, the heart of the issue for me is you didn't need to go to the top of the cage. Just do what, just Jericho would not have been ruined if he tapped out with 2 or 3 guys putting him in different submission holds at once, or whatever creative thing you wanted to do where somebody just gave up in the cage. Like, it would have been fine. It wouldn't have killed the baby faces if they were going to lose this to do it that way. But that's what they did, and here we are.
So whenever they get criticism for something, everybody's like, it's not fair to criticize them for this. Not everybody. There are people that say it's not fair to criticize them for this, to which you kind of just said, and I am saying, they do this to themselves. They booked an exploding barbed wire death match. They booked it so a guy was going to get thrown off the top of a cage. We didn't book that. Right. They booked that.
Correct.
So if it doesn't look good, that's not my fault. That's your fault.
By your fault, you mean AEW's fault, not my fault.
Yeah. Yes, of course. That's what
it was me, guys. It was me, guys. I told Tony Khan to do it.
Of course,
finish off the cage, and I was wrong.
Of course, that's what I meant. It's the AEW's fault.
Yes.
None of us booked them into the corner. They booked themselves into the corner.
Yeah, and like I said, and it's a shame because, and people, I like Sammy Guevara tweeted a picture, like his arm had this giant laceration that he had stitches in, like bruises and welts and all. And like, I'm not saying like, oh, poor him. I'm just saying like those guys, everybody in the match worked really, really hard. And if they had just, I felt, delivered on what they promised, which was a big, mean, bloody fight in the cages, in the cage, in the 2 rings, different than the stunt bump have focused WWE or TNA War Games of the last 2 decades.
Right.
I think everyone today would be, man, they knocked it out of the park with that. Whatever criticisms you have of it, that match was great.
Right.
And instead, we're talking about crash pads and cardboard boxes and the very nature of criticism.
Right.
Because they chose to do the stunt bump instead of, again, if you've done 10 of these matches and you want to do a spot where a guy goes to the top of the cage, great. And again, this is again where I don't like whataboutism, because I saw a lot of, first ever Hell in a Cell match. Sean got out of the cage and climbed to the top, and there was interference, and Kane and DX and everybody ran in. It's like,
right.
Okay,
What does that have to do with anything?
I don't know.
WWE has never understood how to book cage matches. What does that have to do with anything?
Right. And again, it wasn't our idea for you to talk about, the first match harkening back to 1987. Like, you specifically invoked imagery and talked about these classic War Games matches from WCW, which personally, like, I don't have a great affinity for, because obviously I wasn't watching WCW in the height of War Games,
Not a lot of them are very compelling 30 years later.
Right. And I understand people that did watch them at the time have great love for them, and I think that's great. But like I said, even me not being a big fan of the WCW style War Games and maybe being more predisposed to the NXT War Games, where you get to do big dives and it's all weapons and crazy spots and stuff. I love those matches. They're always great.
Yes.
I just keep coming back to, I was loving that match last on Wednesday night.
Yeah, you totally put it over the whole time. Yep.
Like, so all they had to do was not go to the top of the cage. And
Sure.
I'd be singing, but instead that's a classic thing. I mean, that I think other people, Brian Alvarez comes to mind, has said for years, doesn't matter how good the undercard is, right? It matters what the last thing people saw on the show was. Last thing people saw on that show was a very lame looking stunt bump. And so that's what people talked about today.
Yeah, it's silly. They did well. They were number one in the demo for the first time in their history on cable for the night. So good for them.
Take that, the challenge.
Hey, QT Marshall and Cody Rhodes wrestled, and Cody made sure he got some juice.
I thought there was like so many people bleeding on this show. I mean, I think the Nakazawa was bleeding a little bit in the opener, but that wasn't on purpose. That was because I think either Moxley or Eddie Kingston just clocked him in the mouth. Yeah. But yeah, Cody got a good bit of juice for his angle. He won clean by submission. And it turns out that maybe QT Marshall was just the heater for Anthony Ogogo, as maybe we're shifting to that as the program, which, I mean, fair play. I'd much prefer to see Anthony Ogogo, or again, literally anyone else, including either one of Billy Gunn's dickhead sons, be the leader of this faction against Cody. So if QT is relegated to the background now, and it's all about like Anthony Ogogo and the big jacked up dude, and the ex Mr. Bailey, and we focus on those guys who maybe you think have something of a future in wrestling, great. I mean, not great, because QT Marshall's still on the show, but like better than the worst thing.
Guarantee way to pop me. Do a drive-by on Billy Gunn's kids. I'm never expecting it. It always catches me off guard, and I always pop for it.
It's funny. Like, okay, the one son I think is weird, but like Austin is like, I listened to one of his rap songs. It's not bad.
What are you doing with your life, man?
I don't know. He posted on Twitter, and one of the people from AEW I followed retweeted it, and I listened to like a minute of it. Like,
okay, all right.
It was fine. Like, it's not great, but like I listened to a lot of. I had a job where I was supervising a lot of teenagers for a while, so I heard like a lot of SoundCloud rap.
Sure.
Not a lot of it's great.
All right. Yeah.
He would be in like the upper tier of SoundCloud rappers I heard between the like 2017 to 2019.
Okay.
But that being said, I'll still just drive by and take out my QT Marshall related anger on Billy Gunn's large adult sons whenever
I'm never ready for it. You never have to apologize for it, but I'm also never ready for it. All right. New Japan stuff. Oh, I guess hang on. Let's wrap up AEW before we move on there. Kenny Omega is going to defend against either Pac or Orange Cassidy. I'm guessing Orange Cassidy, since Pac like can't get into the country half the time. At their pay-per-view coming up here at the end of the month.
Yeah, it's like every other taping he seems to get in. So
I don't know
that, or maybe once a month. I don't know. what these rules are. But yeah, I mean, I think Orange Cassidy and Kenny Omega sounds like a hoot. So I'm all for that as a match. Now, I mean, the obvious thing to criticize there is that I think Orange Cassidy's had like one win on Dynamite in the last 2 months, and it was like off of a interference thing in a backdrop to a feud between Trent and Chuck and the Lucha Bros.
He hasn't had a big win since Jericho, and that was last September. Is that right?
I believe so.
November. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was September. I think it's been
a long time.
It's been a minute. Well, if you remember when he was sort of at his zenith of popularity, Cody beat him. They did a draw on TV and then they did a rematch and Cody just beat him. And then he was kind of back to, and then while Trent was hurt, he was just in the tag team with Chuck. And then now Trent's back and now I guess they get to resume his singles push. But
cool.
I just like, again, I think he delivers in the ring.
Yeah.
His viewership segment, like if you want to talk business, like that match with Cody did really, really well in the viewers. His segments generally gain viewers when he's on television. I see no reason not to do Orange Cassidy versus Kenny Omega. It's just, well, you probably could have, like, because also Kenny Omega wasn't doing much on television for the last month because I guess they didn't want to set up a challenger while they were waiting for him to win the belts off of Rich Swann in the title match.
So
but again,
stupid.
But again, that's not my fault, and it's not Orange Cassidy's fault.
No,
and you still could have been building Orange Cassidy even if you didn't want to officially say he's the number one contender and it's going to be wrestling Omega. But then also they didn't talk about the Rich Swann match at all on Dynamite until after he had won. So
no, if you just watch AEW, you would have concluded, oh, he's probably defending against Moxley again, because that's who his segments have been with the Young Bucks and with Moxley and Kingston.
Right. Yeah. This was pretty out of left. And we're like 3 weeks out or 4 weeks out from Double or Nothing now. So
yeah, it's Memorial Day weekend, whatever. That's Sunday.
So it's a thing where they have like 10 or 12 weeks between pay-per-views, but also they wait until like 4 weeks out to start like actually building up feuds for it most of the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, a lot of these complaints, like I said, similar to WWE television, it's the same complaints every week, but I thought there were some new wrinkles to them this week with, okay, Orange Cassidy was a guy you were pushing 6 months ago and you gave him a big win over an established main event guy, seemingly to set up his ascension into that main event. And instead we pressed pause on that for about 7 months. And now we press play and we're kind of hoping nobody noticed that we haven't done anything with this guy in a while.
Right. So Omega is the belt collector. He's got a bunch of belts. So now everybody in New Japan is calling themselves a belt collector. Will Ospreay is the world champion over there. He cut a promo, called himself a belt collector. Jay White beat Tanahashi in an absolute banger this past week, and called himself the real belt collector in wrestling and said if anybody has a problem with that, they can come find him. So
do you know what this reminds me of? It's Piper's.
Yes.
I think it's on Piper's DVD years ago.
Yes.
He talks about when he first wore the Icon shirt, and it's like Icon stood for like I count on no one. It was the NWO font.
Right.
The idea is everybody else is in a faction and he's standing alone.
Right.
And then like the next week, Hogan has a voiceover guy going, the real Icon in his music. And Macho Man has Icon written on his tape, on his finger tape.
Yes.
And Piper's like, geez, guys, it's just like something I said in a promo. You guys don't don't take it so seriously.
Right. Yes.
So now we have 8 belt collectors.
Yes. So do you think it is that? It is just something guys are saying in promos, or do you think something's brewing?
I mean, clearly the channels are open. Yuji Nagata is wrestling Jon Moxley on Dynamite next week.
Yep.
So like we're all friends currently. Like those promotions are clearly willing to work together.
Yep.
Now, if they've set up, and I think they would sell a lot of tickets, and that's if they wanted to do a big a big time show, say in a Madison Square Garden or something, that would probably be a match to put on. Would be IWGP champion versus Omega as AEW champion with whatever other belts he has. I think the question would then start to come in with when we start deciding who the winner of that match is, as is generally where interpromotional angles begin to break down. It's like, it's easy. Okay, if you're going to send Yuji Nagata, like, who cares if Yuji Nagata loses, right? Like,
He's 53 years old.
Right. His job is to wrestle in opening match tags and then have like 2 bangers a year with Suzuki, and then sometimes he ends up in the G1 if they're short a guy.
Sure.
But he's not right. He's not there to be put. But when it comes to your top push acts, your Okadas, your Ospreys, your Jay Whites, I don't think they're going to want that guy to lose all of their belts to Kenny Omega. And I don't think Tony, and perhaps rightfully so on the other side, I don't know that Tony Khan wants Will Ospreay to waltz in and beat his world champion. So it's always that thing where then it becomes, we booked this match, everybody wants to see it, but also we're terrified of booking a finish to it.
Right. So it's got to be like trying to book Hogan and Shawn. It's like you book it as a 1-1 or a 1-1-1, and then somebody gets hurt before the second one, you know?
Somebody's back starts hurting, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of thing. Like, either you do it where just one person's belt is on the line, and then there's like interference and that person retains their belt, or you do it like some kind of weird chicanery, like you do a ladder match and like they swap belts or something. It
has to be a 1-1 situation. Otherwise, you're just telegraphing the finish, right? I mean,
right, exactly.
Or if you do what you're suggesting with like only making it for one title.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, I think on paper, the idea of Ospreay and Omega, or another Okada Omega, or Jay White and Omega, especially because of the Bullet Club tie-in stuff, that would be exciting. Like, a lot of wrestling fans would get excited about that match and would pay to see it, would pay to go to it. But it's also one of the things where, like, okay, but then the bell rang and we had to figure out what we were doing.
Right. Another thing, I don't think a lot of fans have been watching Jay White for the last couple of years. I think they still think of him as like slightly overpushed, cosplaying knife pervert guy.
It's like that first Tanahashi Wrestle Kingdom match, Jay White.
Right. And it's like, actually, he's better wrestler than Ric Flair now.
I don't disagree. Like, I think he's really, really good and has been for probably, as you said, about like at least 2 years now.
It's been a while.
He's gotten increasingly better, but
right.
Which is again the sign he's still pretty young and he's only getting better. But yeah, I think there are people that are still kind of locked in that, because again, a lot of people stopped paying attention to New Japan when Omega and Cody left.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very cold promotion right now with a lot of repetitive booking and not a lot of excitement around it. Even in Japan, where they're like setting all-time attendance lows, even though they're like limited as, you know, doing limited capacity shows, still you draw 200 people. That's the Hurricane Hall. That's bad times.
For sure, and I think that they had some COVID problems this week, didn't they?
Yeah, a couple wrestlers tested positive. They pulled them from a show. They pulled everyone that were in the ring with those people that showed up with the fever. They pulled everyone that was in the ring with them the night before, and then the next day, 2 of those people tested positive. So, you know, they got protocols. It's not ideal to be running during a pandemic. We've been saying it for over a year now.
Yeah, I mean, this is a different discussion entirely, but like, I don't know anything about how vaccine distribution is going over there, so I don't know.
Not well.
I mean, and part of the problem is that, like, you know, this week we've gotten to the point where the country is we're pretty okay. We're not like actually doing anything yet, but we're like, we think it's probably a good thing to relax those patents so that other countries can manufacture these things in large doses. But like we haven't actually like put that into action yet. We're just like, I support that as like a general idea. That's kind of the point we're at. So should probably get on that so that all of these like, you know, heavily populated countries can stop having record hospitalizations and deaths every day.
The only places in the world that really have this under control are New Zealand, where they haven't had a single case in 3 months. And Australia has had like one case in the last like 6 weeks or something. Like,
yeah,
they got it under control there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and again, like it's geographically there, it's a little bit easier, but yeah, they're also like they took it seriously. There was a long lockdown in Australia. Like I want to say they were locked down for like 3 months almost straight.
Yeah,
like it was a countrywide, and hey, they paid people to stay home, and the country isn't a socialist wasteland after those 3 months. Just some food for thought.
All right. Well, we've gotten your plug for Socialism In.
Yep.
Gotten a big shout out to Nike, Xfinity, and Coca-Cola, 3 of my favorite brands. Gotten my shout out to Capitalism In. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss this week?
No, yeah, I think it feels like a lot of stuff is happening in wrestling, but none of it's all that interesting right now. Because like we said, like that belt collector thing could be interesting, but we are so far away from like Kenny Omega versus Jay White or Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay being a legitimate possibility, much less, like we said, getting to the actual minutia of booking the thing. But
well,
like it's hard. Like there's stuff on the horizon, and like I said, in the short term, like hey, I think there's going to be some fun matches, and NXT's got some good wrestling on it and all that. But it's like, yeah, I feel like some stuff's happening all over the place, but not a lot of it's like real exciting. I guess you got that next Tokyo Dome show coming up with Okada and Ospreay running it back.
I'm not super, you know, on the one hand, it does feel like all that stuff is a million miles away, like that potential stuff, or, you know, big shows here in the United States. At some point, like there's just going to be a day where like everything is normal again, and then it's going to get normal real fast.
Yeah, I mean, as far as wrestling goes, I believe Tony Khan said this week that Double or Nothing at Daly's place is full capacity show. So guess we're getting normal a little faster than maybe we would have expected.
Well, I'm sure Dr. Khan has everything all figured out.
It's Florida, the most COVID-free place in the world.
What could possibly go wrong? All right. Until next time, everyone. I'm Ethan.
And I'm Liam.
We'll be back soon with more stories from the wrestling life.
Adios.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Now, here are this week's bonus features.
I was upset that for the first time ever that I did not have Xfinity because I wasn't able to tune into Massillon to watch John Means throw the no-hitter. I had to listen to it on the MLB radio app.
That's what you get for not being a customer. A loyal Xfinity customer. Yeah, that was exciting. I only saw the last 2 innings of the replay today, actually. So on Xfinity.
Yeah, no, I mean, I enjoyed listening to it. Apparently, they were simulcasting it on Sports Center by the end there, so I could have probably seen it. I don't know. It might have been the Seattle version of the game or whatever, but
right.
I still probably could have watched it, but I didn't really think about that. Also, at a certain point, I got into that weird jinx mode where I didn't want to talk about what was happening and
right.
didn't want to get up. I didn't want to like move from off the couch. Like if I had my second shot, I might have ventured over to Looney's or something to watch it. But I just like, we're gonna sit here, we're gonna listen to the game, we're not gonna go get changed, we're gonna sit here till he gives up a hit or the game's over.
So it was pretty much like 1946 in your living room.
Pretty much
sitting there listening to the radio, trying to figure out who wins the ball game.
Exactly. No, thankfully, no static. Thankfully,
Right.
But yes, very auditory. Didn't have the TV on. Wasn't trying to look at my phone too much. Just sitting there in abject silence, because that's what you did. You didn't. You sat and you listened.
Yes, the radio was your TV.
Exactly.
Well, if you grew up in a homeschooling family, that was also kind of true.
That's right. It's some things. I was thinking about that as I watched the 2021 Mortal Kombat movie with a couple days ago on HBO Max, and a friend of mine was like, "Oh, did you watch like the 1995 one when you were a kid?" And I was like, "Dude, it's gonna be easier if I tell you that like there's like if you go through all of these movies, it's gonna be way easy for me to tell you like the 3 I have seen than like the 75 like seminal childhood classics that I just never saw
right
growing up, because I listened to radio and I listened to AM talk radio, I listened to Adventures in Odyssey, and I listened to, you know, 1 or 2 pre-approved Christian friendly rock bands until I was like 15.
Right. That's how it went. Yep.
I try to keep on keeping on.